Hello my dear student, I am Professor Devashish Bose, Head Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. Today I am going to present a lecture of BA first semester on the unit Introduction to Criminology, and the topic will be Etiology of Crime Part 3, that is Sociological Theories of Crime, which has been prepared by Dr. Deepak Gupta, a PhD in Criminology and a guest faculty at Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. Let's start our discussion while taking a look at what we are going to learn today in Etiology of Crime, Part 3, under the heading Sociological Theories of Crime. Module 1 will be our introduction. Module 2 will be dedicated to structural explanations. Module 3 will be subcultural explanation. Module 4, multiple factor approach. Module 5, crime in urban and rural areas. Module 6 will be neighborhood influences, and finally Module 7 will be our conclusion. So in all these theories which adopt to objective approach to explain criminality, and they emphasize factors that affect many criminals in common. American criminologists prefer this approach. They attribute criminality to the social condition of the criminal. Crime causation depends considerably on social interaction. At times, persons violate the provisions of law, knowing fully well that they will have to face penal consequences for their act. This phenomenon is more conspicuous in time of political strategy. For example, in the freedom struggle of India, Mahatma Gandhi and other national leaders broke the laws made by English and were imprisoned. Similarly, cases of hunger strike, demonstration of protest, self-immolation are all glaring instances of deliberate law violators by responsible persons of the society. As social condition changes, criminological theories are being refined and extended, making the sociological perspective a robust and exciting lens from which to view the crime. Rather than considering crime a problem of the mind, body or soul, sociological theories of crime observe society and examine how the interaction between people and their social environment produces antisocial behavior. In this chapter and the next, we will examine the major sociological theories of crime and delinquency. Sociological theories provide a basis for formulating policies to address not only crime but also the societal conditions that are considered to cause or contribute to a range of social problems. For instance, the effect of racism, sexism, and discrimination based on socio-economic class have been at the heart of civil rights legislation, poverty program, and anti-sexual harassment legislation. American sociologist Robert K. Merton developed structural strain theory as an extension of the functionalist perspective on deviance. This theory traces the origin of deviance to the tension that are caused by the gap between cultural goals and the means people have available to achieve these goals. According to this theory, societies are composed of both culture and social structure. Culture establishes goal for people in society, while social structure provides the means for people to achieve these goals. In a well-integrated society, people use accepted and appropriate means to achieve the goal that society establishes. In this case, the goal and the means of the society are in balance. It is when the goals and means are not in balance with each other that deviance is likely to occur. This imbalance between cultural goals and structurally available means can actually encourage deviance. Merton's theory of social structure and anom Robert K. Merton explained this through his popular explanation of social structure and anom. He explained the collapsing of social condition brought by severe economic conditions responsible for criminal behavior. He rejects the notion that crime is an intrinsic and individual behavior. He looks beyond the immediate personal environment of the criminals to the broader context of social structure and anom. For explanation of criminal behavior, Merton borrowed the term anom from Émile Durkheim, a French socialist. Durkheim had studied the French and American culture after the Industrial Revolution. In his study, he noted that economic crisis and a general breakdown of the normal social condition created deregulation of social and moral rules. This deregulation, which the called anom, could lead to all sorts of social deviance, including suicide and crime. Anom is a condition which exists when norms no longer controls people's behavior, when people no longer have clear rules, when normalness exists, the control on behavior and aspiration ceases to exist. Merton maintained that anom is especially likely to exist in a society where there is unequal opportunity and an emphasis on material success, and he claimed that it can explain a broad range of socially deviant behavior. Merton explains that society established institutionalized goals, usually understood to be financial success, which society emphasizes and reinforces. To achieve these goals, there are socially structured methods which can be called means. When such goals are overemphasized and highly praised, but the means to achieve them are unavailable to a considerable part of the population, then anom is likely. That is, when success is blocked by the unavailability of means, individual experience strain and show two kinds of reaction. Either they must adjust their aspiration downward or devise alternative routes to achieve their goal. In such an environment, deviant behavior is widely spread. According to Merton, 5 modes are adopted by the people to achieve their goal. They are conformity, innovation, ritualism, ritualism, and rebellion. The second type of sociological approach focuses on subcultural explanations with emphasis on the discrepancy in the norms for different groups. Means of subculture. A subculture is subdivision within the dominant culture that has its own norms, beliefs, and values. Subculture typically emerge when people in similar circumstances find themselves isolated from the mainstream and band together for mutual support. Subcultures may form among members of racial and ethnic minorities, among prisoners, among occupational groups, among ghetto dwellers. Subcultures exist within a larger society, not apart from it. They therefore share some of its values also. Nevertheless, the lifestyle of their members are significantly different from those of in the dominant culture. According to Albert Cohen, an American sociologist, deviant behavior is supported by subculture. A subculture of criminals has its own norms which stands over against the norms of the larger group, that is the dominant group culture. The deviance does not appear unusual or abnormal from their point of view. Indeed, most subcultures have a vague notion that the larger society is unjust and corrupt. Important types of deviant behaviors are juvenile delinquency, drug addiction, and crime against person and property. The laxity of norms, the anomalous nature of cities, and multiple standards of behaviors are often responsible for it. Basis of the subculture theory. Strain theorist That is structural explanation. Explain criminal behavior as a result of the frustration suffered by lower class individuals deprived of legitimate means to reach their goal. Cultural deviance theorists assume that individuals become criminal by learning the criminal values of the group to which they belong. In conforming to their own group standard, these people break the law of the dominant culture. Gangs, for example, possess norms about how to behave. For some young people, the gang takes the place of parents as the giver of norms, even when the parents attempt to instill their own values. Despite repeated attempts on the part of criminologists propounding different views to formulate a singular theoretical explanation for criminal behavior, no hypothesis could answer the issue satisfactorily. Eventually, the sociologists made use of multiple factor approach to explain the causation of crime. The supporters of this view believe that crime is a product of a combination of a variety of factors which cannot be narrated in terms of general propositions. This view finds support from the writing of eminent American criminologist William Haley, expressing his view on multiple causation of theory. Professor Haley observed that it is not one or two factors which turns a man delinquent, but it is a combination of many more factors, say 8 or 10, which cumulatively influence him to follow a criminal conduct. From the foregoing analysis, it is evident that sociologists consider crime as a product of environmental deviation and varying social conditions. The interrelation between criminality and some of these conditions may be discussed under the following head. They are mobility. The rapid growth of industrialization and urbanization in the recent years had led to expansion of means of communication, travel, facilities and propagation of views through press and platform. Consequently, human interaction has gone beyond intimate association with increased chances of mobility. Migration of persons to new places where they are strangers offers them better opportunities for crime as the chance of detection are considerably minimized. Mobility therefore serves as a potential cause of social disorganization which may result in deviant behavior due to lack of family control. Next is culture conflict. In a dynamic society, social change is an inevitable phenomenon. The impact of modernization, urbanization and industrialization in modern dynamic society may sometimes result in social disorganization, and this may lead to cultural conflicts between different sections of society. The difference may be between old, new values, local and imported values, and traditional values, and the government imposed value. Criminality arising out of cultural conflict theory has been well explained by Shah and Mackay through their cultural transmission theory of crime, which was a dominant criminological theory of the 20th century. The theory simply states that traditions of delinquency are transmitted through successive generation of the same inhibition in the same way as language and attitudes are transmitted. Next is family background. Sutherland holds that out of all social process, the family background has perhaps the greatest influence on criminal behavior of the offender. The reason being that children spend most of their times with their parents and relatives within the family. Children are apt to imbibe criminal tendency if they find their parents or members of their family behaving in the similar manner. The institution of family is expected to cater to the basic needs of the children. Therefore, the child should feel that he enjoys a certain privilege and protection in his family, and that he loved and linked by his parents and members of the family. This feeling of security, warmth and reliance makes that children to learn the virtue of love, respect and duty towards others. Thus, It is through the institution of family that the child unconsciously learns to adjust himself to the environment and accept the values of life such as respect for others, faithfulness, trustworthiness, and cooperation through his own life experience. It therefore follows that a child brought up in a broken family is likely to fall an easy prey to criminality. Lack of parental control over children due to death, divorce, or desertion of parent, or their ignorance or illness, any of them, may furnish soothing ground for the children to restore to criminal act. Next is political ideology. It is well known that the parliamentarians, who are the lawmakers of the country, any of the countries, are also politicians. They succeed in immobilizing public opinion in the desired way through the media of press and platform, and finally enact suitable laws to support their policies. Thus, political ideologies gain strength through legislative process, thereby directly influencing the criminal pattern in a given society. The liberalization of abortion law, protection of women against violence, including harmful traditional practices, etc., are some of the examples to show as to how the concept of criminality changes with the changed ideology of the politicians and the government in power. With the change in ideologies, what was unlawful and illegal till yesterday may become lawful and legal today, and vice versa. The lawmakers justify these changes for the good of the society, keeping in view the changing norms of civilization and culture. Again, political changes in a country may give rise to new political offenses. The excessive interference of politicians in executive functions of the government weakens the morale of the administrator as well as the police. With the result, there is spontaneous growth in crime rate. Next is religion and the crime. The changes in the religious ideologies also have a direct bearing on incidences of crime in a particular region. It has been rightly said that morality can best be preserved in a society through the institution of religion. The bond of religion keeps persons within their limits and helps them to keep away from sinful and criminal acts. The declining influence of religion in modern times has tended to leave men free to do as they like without any constraint or fear. Consequently, they do not hesitate to resort to criminality even for petty materialistic gains. Despite the fact that all religions speak of communal harmony and peaceful coexistence, most wars on the earth are fought for the name of religion. The war between Iraq and Iran for over 8 years, the war in Lebanon, and the counting fight between Catholics and Protestants in Northern Ireland, and even terrorist activities within our country are being carried out in the name of hidden religious overtones. These decisive forces contribute considerably to the incidence of murder, mass killing, destruction of public and private property, and other antisocial behaviors. Next is economic conditions. Economic conditions also influence criminality to a considerable extent. Present-day industrial progress, economic growth, and urbanization have paralyzed the Ethiopian domestic life. The institution of family has disintegrated to such an extent that control of parents over their wards had weakened, thus leaving them without any surveillance. Under the circumstances, those who lack self-control fall an easy prey to criminality. The need for economic empowerment of women leads to employment of women and their other outdoor activities. This in turn enhances the opportunity for sexual-based crime. Again, crimes such as hoarding, undue profiteering, black marketeering, etc., are essentially an outcome of economic changes. Nowadays, money is the paramount consideration to assess the social status of a person in society. Crimes in higher circles of society can easily be wiped off through money. Unemployment among the youth is yet another cause of increase in crime rate. If the energies of these young persons are properly channelized, surely the crime rate among the age of group will decrease. Ecology of crime. Ecology is the study of people and institution in relation to environment. Topographical conditions also affect the incidence of crime in a particular region or locality. After a series of research, Enrico Ferrer, the eminent Italian criminologist, analyzed the crime index of his country and concluded that in the same country, the crime rate varies considerably from one region to another. Some typical crimes are more peculiar to a particular region than other parts of the country. Similar observations were made by criminologists in France, England, and USA, which sufficiently established the influence of ecology on crime. It is well known that violating of customs, excise and drug laws are more common in border areas and coastal regions than in plains. Illegal felling of trees and violation of forest law is an everyday occurrence in forest region. The impact of ecology on crime can apparently be seen in dacoit-infested forest region where opportunities for escape and avoid detection are plenty. Similarly, pilgrim places are the breeding grounds for all sorts of antisocial activities such as cheating, stealing, exploiting, etc. Now we move on to another important thing, influence of media. It's very important. The importance of mass media in influencing human mind has been repeatedly emphasized by some experts. Experience has shown that television and films has the maximum impact on the viewers due to combined audiovisual impact. Most of the serials or films shown on television or cinema hall or theaters depict scenes of violence which adversely affect the viewers, particularly the young boys and girls who often tend to imitate the same in their real life situation, making their heroes as the ideal. The rising incidence of juvenile delinquency is essentially the result of evil effects of violence and vulgarism and undesirable sex exposures depicted in the movies or televisions. Likewise, pornographic literature also has an unwholesome influence on the impressionable mind of the youth, which generates criminality among them. Most criminologists believe that films and television are major contributors to violent behavior. A survey conducted by the broadcasting group of the House of Lords indicated that exposure to media violence was closely linked with aggressive behavior. But Hegel and Newbery opposed the view that there was a link between violent media images and criminality after finding that persistent offenders watch films or television far less than non-criminals. Gillen has expressed doubt about any real link between media and violence. According to him, films, TV and other media teach methods of violence to those who are already susceptible to them, but it does not go further beyond that. Nevertheless, it would be seen that in recent years the media has a powerful effect on public perception of the dangers posed by particular events, action or behaviors. The emotive power of the media may, however, sometimes lead to illogical and ill-conceived conclusions. At times, it may be noticed that crime depiction in the media is deliberately distorted to suppress reality. Again, there may be occasions when an act committed by an influential person or a politician may not be given coverage or condemnation despite being blatantly criminal or antisocial in nature. Ecological aspects of crime can best be demonstrated by an analysis of a variety of crimes operating in urban as well as rural areas. Many crimes which are common in urban areas are unknown to the rural setting. The concentration of industry and commercial activities in urban region has given rise to the problems of immigration, mobility of population and scarcity of residential accommodations. The availability of quick means of transport in cities offer better opportunity for delinquents to escape detection and arrest. The incidence of juvenile delinquency, shoplifting, petty thefts, and sexual offences are more common in slum areas and poverty-stricken homes. That apart, the recurrence of white-collar crimes, bank offences, frauds, embezzlements, racketeering, a system of organized crime that is traditionally involved in extortion of money from businessmen by intimidation, violence, or other illegal methods, and the likely and mostly confined to urban regions. Conversely, some crimes are exclusively confined to rural areas and that rarely occurs in big cities. Thus, the theft of crops and cattle, arson and trespassing are predominantly the offences of rural setting. Commenting on the incidences of crimes in urban and rural regions, Donald Taft opines that the number of crimes committed in the rural areas are fewer than those committed in urban cities because of the greater homogeneity of rural population, lesser mobility and absence of adequate opportunities for the criminal to escape. Greater mobility due to migration and immigration of labor, overcrowding in urban dwelling, the absence of effective family or community control, and lack of constructive influence are the main cause for multiplicity of crime in urban regions. The rural migrants in new cities are unable to easily adjust to the impersonal heterogeneity of urban life. They are no longer controlled by the traditional norms and the family loyalty. They became restless, persons without associates. In the words of Durkheim, they become small particles in the world of disorganized dust. Thus, heterogeneity of urban life destroys their earlier congenital social relationship, creating a social vacuum which proves to be a fertile ground for criminality. Under such conditions, violence and crimes proliferate. Again, in the inhabitants of rural areas are by nature simple and law-abiding as compared with their urban counterparts, probably because of their illiteracy and their modest living. Moreover, limited contact with the outside world keep them unaware of the technicalities of criminal life. It is generally believed that crime related to property are predominantly committed in the urban areas, while those against person are more common in rural regions. However, this hypothesis does not seem to be wholly correct. Property crimes as a common in villages as in towns. Likewise, crime related to person are as rampant in cities and towns as in rural areas. Neighborhood influences also have much to do with the nature of crimes in a particular locality. Thus, thickly inhabited areas, towns and cities offer frequent opportunities for sexual offences and crimes relating to theft, bottling, burglary, kidnapping, cheating and deceit, and so on. Cases of pickpocketing are common in railway stations, bus stands and other halt places. Thefts of footwear are too common in temples and places of worship within India. This is all very well known. Ecological studies of prisons further reveals that certain type of crimes are peculiar to the prison life. For example, homosexuality is common among the prisoners because of their inability to resist biological needs due to their deprivation of family life. That apart, the convicts quite often indulge in mutual fights and quarrels in attempt to show their muscle power and supremacy and establish dominance over other prisoners in regard to their skills in criminality. Violent offenders generally resort to destruction of prison property and offend prison authorities on petty issues. Another significant feature of these delinquent areas is the location of certain antisocial institutions in the neighborhood. These include prostitution houses, gambling dens, brothels, and similar other dubious institutions. These areas of vice are delinquency ridden and offer a fertile ground for organized criminal activities. The inhabitants of nearby localities are easily influenced by these vicious activities and thus lend themselves into the life of criminality. As per W.I. Thomas, the famous sociologist of the Chicago School, asserted that inability of a neighborhood to solve its problem together leads to social disorganization, leading to unconscious motivations for crime. Inability of a group to engage in self-regulation turns them towards delinquency. More recently, there has been a tendency to correlate certain places of recreation with the ecology of crime. The cinema, theatres, swimming pools, sport grounds, parlours, race course generally offers a favourable atmosphere for delinquency. But this is rather an oversimplification of facts. As a matter of fact, the frequency of crime in these places has little to do with their location. In fact, it is the environment and not the ecological influence which generates crime in these places. Moreover, there are quite a large number of law-abiding members of the society who do not become criminals even after coming in contact with these delinquents in these places of recreation or entertainment. So, as you have learned in that lecture, that American sociologist Robert K. Merton developed structural strain theory as an extension of the functionalist perceived on deviance, and the another scientist Robert K. Merton have explained this through his popular explanation of social structure and unknown. In the lecture, you all have seen that the criminal behavior is different in rural and urban population. We have also seen that the criminal behavior is also influenced by cultural, social, neighborhood environment. My dear student, with all these information, here we come to the end of today's lecture. Do keep in mind what we have discussed today. This is Professor Devashish Bose signing off for today. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website for MCQs, quizzes, LOR at www.cec.nic.in. Till then, thank you and goodbye.